on the doorstep, there's been a bit of a few questions cropping up about the Green Party's policies on certain issues that I suppose people have the perception that is going to adversely affect them. And the most common one that's come up so far, I think, is carbon tax.
Yeah.
Would you like to just clarify the Green Party's position on carbon tax?
I would, because a lot of people, their issue with the carbon tax is their issue with the Fine Gael carbon tax and the model that's been proposed there. So at the moment, carbon tax has been levied and it's been paid into general taxation. Now, if you make a carbon tax part of general taxation, there's no incentive for a government to reduce that income. So you need to keep it revenue neutral. You need to keep the tax raised by your carbon tax to one side. Do not build it into government spending. Now our model is something completely different. You can call it a fee and dividend model or a carbon cashback. Gives you a better idea of what we're talking about. We think money raised in carbon tax should be paid into a central pot and then split back out equally. That means the person who uses the most carbon pays the most. Everybody gets the same share out. But what it really means critically is a person who uses least carbon stands to benefit. They'll actually make money from the carbon tax. And what we know is that the people who are on the lowest incomes are the people who use the least carbon. So we've had our fee and dividend model, we've had it road tested by the ESRI. They found it to be a socially progressive tax. That is, it'll be a tax that will benefit the poorest in our society. And so it becomes a redistributive tax. And I think that's the way to go. So that's what the Green Party proposal is. But we should be clear about a carbon tax or carbon pricing, that carbon has a cost. Carbon has a cost no matter what way we look at it. So what we need to decide is, if carbon has a cost, how do we pay that cost? And how do we pay it in a way that's fair? How do we pay it in a way that's not somebody quietly making an easy political decision? So for example, we're liable for up to 600 million of EU fines because we haven't hit our carbon targets. We haven't come close to hitting our carbon targets. But a decision has been made to pay that quietly out of government funds because it's politically easier to do that. It's not a difficult political decision. But we know if we lose money out of the exchequer like that, what suffers is services. And when services suffer, the people who use services most are the people who are at the lower socio-economic end of our spectrum. So we'll end up with poor people essentially paying through reduced services for our carbon policy. And I don't think that doesn't sit with me, as I said, as a spokesperson for social protection. I think we need to structure it in a much more fair and progressive way.
And then I suppose the other issue that comes up is there's a perception in the public that the Green Party policies would have a detrimental impact on rural Ireland.
Yeah.
What's your take on that?
I don't agree with it at all, and you're dead right. It's a stick that's being used to beat the Green Party. I'm from Butlerstown. I'm from rural Ireland. So people are talking about how essential cars are for use of rural Ireland. Cars shouldn't be essential in rural Ireland, but our planning policy has meant we have a huge amount of one-off housing, which makes people extremely car dependent instead of building our towns and our villages. So instead of concentrating our houses in Fenner, or in Dunhill is a good example where they did put houses in the town centre and get people out of their cars. Because when people talk about car dependency, something that they're forgetting is there's a lot of people who live in rural Ireland who, for reasons of maybe ill health or disability or age, advancing age, who can't use cars. And now you're talking about a huge problem of rural isolation, where people are siloed into their one-off houses. They don't have access to the local post office or the local shop. They can't meet people incidentally on the street. Actually, local link buses, for example, they're something that should be seriously invested in. We have a great rural link connection between Tramore and Dungarvan, which serves your Bunmahans, your Stradvalleys, your Dunhills, and all the points in between. I was talking to a man last night who was involved in that, and he said they're chronically underinvested. They're made jump through all sorts of legislative hoops. But you're dead right. People are portraying the Green Party as an anti-rural party, or this D4 kind of stereotype. Well, I can tell people is I'm not D4. I know rural Ireland, I know rural Waterford very well. and I think our policies are beneficial to rural Ireland.